Good morning, Sam,
Good morning, Vesna.
and good morning to everyone. I know it can be afternoon, evening, during the night, whenever you want to listen to it. But welcome to my podcast, Videocast. And I am very happy to introduce you to my guest today. It is Dr. Samantha Hardy. And Sam, tell us about how we do you remember how we met each other? I remember that I interviewed you after you were declared the mediator of the year in
Conflict coach of the year.
2022. Yes, tell us.
Conflict coach of the year it was, yes.
Conflict coach of the year. Yes, tell us about that and tell us about yourself and your practice in a nutshell, and
Sure.
then we'll explore it.
Okay. Well, that was the first time they'd offered the award of Conflict Coach of the Year. So I was quite excited because conflict coaching is something I'm very passionate about, and I've developed my own conflict coaching model. So I was delighted to win that. But as you know, I started out in mediation. I did my original mediation training in 1997. So that's showing my age. And yeah, since then I've been practicing doing mediation and conflict coaching, but also a lot of training in universities and privately, and now through the Conflict Management Academy.
So you mentioned that CMA, something that I think every single mediator is aware of, and it's the Conflict Management Academy. And you are the owner. You started it, and now you've got a number of very experienced collaborators, co-workers, co-owners. Tell us.
Yes, I'm lucky to have a team of really passionate people, and a lot of them just work as consultants for various projects that we have. But our main purpose is professional development for people who work with clients in conflict. So that might be mediators or conflict coaches or lawyers, or even we have a lot of social workers and counsellors who deal with clients in conflict, people in the education department, all sorts of people, because let's face it, conflict is everywhere. And we also train under the AMDRAS standards, so we offer facilitative mediation training. But one of the things that I'm excited about is we also offer transformative and narrative mediation training. And I think it's really important. We're trying to diversify the field and to encourage reflective practice and continual development. So, what we don't want people to do is just do their basic mediation training and then not do anything differently for the next 30 years. I mean, that's okay. It can work and they can, have a successful career and help people. But one of our mottos is that we should all aspire to artistry. And that's a never ending process of lifelong learning and ongoing reflective practice. And so that's what the Conflict Management Academy is all about.
Conflict Management Academy really offers a range of services, as you said. And I note that you regularly post on LinkedIn. You are very active in very different areas of your business. How do you manage all of that? I really aspire to be like you, but it's challenging.
Look, I have my moments. I said the other day that I'm on like day 967 of saying, "Oh, things will calm down soon." Um, I think part of the reason I'm able to do it is that I'm really passionate about this field. I love researching, I love thinking about the field, I love coming up with practical ideas to help practitioners to move towards artistry. So for me, this is a joy. And people talk about, oh, what will you do when you retire? I'm like, I'll just keep doing this because this is what I love. Um, and social media, I always have things to share. I'm constantly reading. I constantly see other people's ideas and think, oh, that should be shared. Or I have a lot of people who I mentor and they'll ask me a question. The other day, someone said, I have to approach a client's come to me for mediation and they've asked me to approach the other party and invite them to mediation, and I don't know how to do this. And I said, that's interesting. I think it's something we don't talk about a lot. So I wrote a blog post on it, which came out on social media yesterday. So I use those sorts of questions as catalysts for not just answering the person who asked me's question, but sharing that with the broader audience, because I think often we do the training and then we set people free into the world and hope that they do okay. But I think what we really try to provide is that ongoing mentorship and ongoing community of practice so that people can ask those questions and we can share ideas. And I don't always have all the right answers, but I can give people ideas and things to think about and start discussions in the community. So yeah, it's been really wonderful. And we've got a really wonderful community of students and past students and trainers. And it makes my heart full. I love it. So it's not a chore to me. It's something that I just love doing.
And it shows really, because every now and then you come up with your most recently read books. And I don't know, do you read them in 3 hours or something like that? Because
I am a
sometimes
fast reader.
you're a fast reader, I can say that, but then I can see that. But then also that your focus on students and of all ages and all levels of their involvement with our beautiful profession of mediation shows really in your activities. Tell us, Sam, when you choose, I understand you get topics from talking to people and colleagues and all of that, but how do you choose a topic? For example, the most recent one that you've been involved in, and that I have been monitoring, is about neurodiversity and conflict. And there is an upcoming seminar or training, a whole day training in Brisbane that is happening.
Right.
Tell us about that. Like it's a huge area. It's very important because recently, and let me just go through that a little bit, finish my thought, is that we see many, not many, a number of adults who actually have just realized, oh, I might be on that spectrum. I might be neurodivergent in some way. So how do you do that? How do you venture into something like that?
Yeah. I had a child when I was 44, just 10 years ago. There you go. Now everyone knows my age.
You
And
don't look it, don't worry.
thank you. It's the Zoom filter. It's very flattering. One of the benefits of working online. The first couple of years of her life, she was really unwell. She was born without a trachea and esophagus being formed properly. So she had to have surgery straight after she was born, and she was in ICU for a long time. And we lived at the hospital for a month. But she got well, but she wasn't able to go to any childcare because for the first 2 years of her life, she would just unexpectedly stop breathing and need resuscitation. So yeah, not one of the things that you want to experience in your life, but those 2 years, I had to stop working completely for those 2 years, and I was with her 24/7. We had a lot of trips to hospital. I got very skilled at doing CPR, not a skill you thought you'd want to have to practice that often. But anyway, she made it through those tricky first couple of years and developed into a very healthy child, and then started finally going to kindergarten and school. And then things got really difficult, and we weren't sure whether it was something to do with the trauma of the first couple of years of her life, but it turned out she was autistic. We had a diagnosis and she was autistic. And so she went to school until year 3, but then it was very difficult for her to continue with schooling, and she was really unwell at that point. So we took her out of school, and I now try to loosely homeschool her while doing this work. But around that time, we were seeing a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists, occupational therapists, and people were saying to me, Sam, have you thought about getting a diagnosis? I'm like, no, I can't be autistic. Look at me. I've got this great career. And then people just kept making these little comments. So I actually went and had an assessment done, and I am autistic as well. I know. And I argued with the psychiatrist and said, that can't be right. Like, I can't be autistic. How can that be possible? I've seen what autistic people are like, and that's not me. And the psych explained to me that I have lived a very privileged life, and I've managed to create a job where I'm self-contained. I work at home. I work fairly in isolation. And I don't know if you know, but autistic people tend to have very passionate interests. And, there's stereotypes of like young male autistic boys being obsessed with trains or knowing dinosaurs. Well, my passion is people and figuring out what goes on with people. And so I've made my special interest my job. So anyway, that all was sort of happening over the last couple of years. And then, of course, I start to relate my personal experiences to my work. And I'm like, well, I wonder what's out there about neuro. And it turns out I have a lot of neurodivergent clients, and I relate really well. Now I know why to people who are autistic in particular. But I understood them, and I understood why some of these things were challenging for them. And it never really occurred to me that it was because I related to their challenges. But it turns out that's why. And so then I thought, there's a lot of people out there in conflict. They're often screened out and assumed to not have capacity, but that is not the case. And I know that myself, and I know that from working with many people. And so I went looking to see what was written, and there's nothing out there specifically about conflict, very little. But me having that expertise and then some lived experience, I was able to start putting things together. And it's still very much a work in progress, but I have done a number of trainings in the last 6 months on this topic. And I think it's coming together quite well. And I've got some very good collaborators in different parts of the world who I speak to regularly about this. And we're really starting to pull together some great resources. And I think it's a broader issue for me about inclusion and about being flexible with our process. And I think the standard facilitator model that we've been using for 50 odd years, since the Harvard, Fisher and Urey type people developed it, it hasn't changed, it hasn't developed. And our society has become much more complicated, much more inclusive in many ways. We are recognising neurodivergent people in the workplace, and we're making accommodations for neurodivergent kids in schools. And yet our mediation system is still built on very neurotypical assumptions and processes that don't work for everybody. And it's not that it can't work. We just need to be more flexible. So that's become my current focus, and is taking up a lot of my time. But I feel that it's super valuable. And there's a lot of conflict between parents, one of whom might support a diagnosis of their child and be willing to be very flexible in the way that they structure their lives. The other parent might be in denial about that for whatever reasons. We have conflict in families between a neurodivergent partner and a neurotypical partner. We have conflicts in workplaces who are inclusive in that they employ neurodivergent people, but then they don't adapt their systems to make it possible for those people to work and communicate in a way that's comfortable for them. And then there's mediation, where we can do so much more if we are just a little bit more open-minded, I suppose.
Sam, I'm completely, I'm enjoying this. I feel that I have learned about you at a different level now. It's been only a few minutes, but I think that you've given us such an important aspect of your life and such a personal aspect of your life that I'm really grateful for.
Oh, you're welcome. I haven't really talked about it much, but when you start training in this field, people always say, who are you to be talking about this topic? It would be like me, I would never teach Indigenous conflict resolution practices because I'm not Indigenous. And so I thought I have to disclose this. I shouldn't be ashamed of it, but I was at some point worried about how people might perceive it. But I think it is important, if you're working in the field, to show that you do actually know what you're talking about. You're not just an outsider giving advice in a kind of paternalistic way. And people have been amazing, I must say. It's only been in the last year that I started disclosing this, but I'm actually okay about it. And as I said, I've been in a very privileged position to not have to be working in environments that I find challenging.
But you know what? And I know that I'm slightly cutting you off here, but I wanted to get back to it a few minutes ago when you were saying that you've been privileged and that you've created yourself an environment in which you can work and give the best out of you and your knowledge. But on the other hand, you are inclined to talk to people and to be with people, and you are so skilled with that and you are enjoying it. So it's such an interesting, you created your shell, but then you are opening that shell to everyone.
Yeah, but also it is part of my interest. You know, my interest is people, and partly when I was younger, being curious about people and how they communicated and what they really meant was a survival mechanism, right?
Mm,
Because
mm,
I would have to say, okay, did they actually mean that? Because you know, people sometimes say things that isn't literally what they mean, and so I think as a child it was a survival mechanism, being curious about what was actually going on for people, what they actually
mm,
meant. Then it became a special interest, and I did a lot of
mm.
research, and I just enjoy it. I mean, my daughter's special interest is dogs. She can tell you everything about the Australian Kennel Club standards and what breed is within and
Wow.
without that standard. And, you know, she can tell you every detail about dogs. My special interest is people. And
People.
so I'm curious and I love, you know, I was really that child that was always, but why? But why? But why would they say that if that's not what they meant? And why do they do that? And how could they have got in this situation?
Exactly, exactly. And you know what? Both of you and I are lawyers, and you have a PhD in law and conflict. I
Mm-hmm.
believe I'm correct about
Yes.
that. And now that I've heard about all these, your personal aspects of that, as a professional, Sam, how do you now look at and I know that it is going slightly outside of the mediation field that we are discussing today, but how do you feel about the whole justice system? I mean, just think about neurodivergence and the justice system and
Yeah.
you know,
Look, I mean,
everything that happens in that courtroom.
I kind of enjoyed law because it was very logical. You know, you would develop arguments based on fairly standard steps. I was quite good at arguing, but I
Aha.
did not enjoy working in a law firm. I found that environment very, very difficult. I
Yeah.
was much better when I went to academia and doing private practice. It was great because I was in my own little space. I could focus on what I wanted to. I think the common theme for me, I also wanted to help people, and I think what I quickly
Mm,
realized in the law was that there are aspects of the law where you can really help people, but a lot of what I was doing, I didn't feel like I was really helping people, and I felt that
mm,
it was a very artificially structured environment, and this idea of justice was a bit of, it was a dream justice. It wasn't real. People who
mm,
even won their cases didn't feel like they'd achieved justice.
mm.
So I was a little bit disillusioned by it. And I think that's another real autistic trait, this very strong sense of justice and this really strong sense of egalitarianism, that not accepting hierarchies just because someone tells you you should,
Mhm.
really seeing everyone as equal. My daughter's like that. She doesn't recognize adults as being any more important than her. And while sometimes that can make it hard to parent,
Yeah.
I really admire this. You have to prove yourself to me. If you want me to trust you, then I need to
Yes.
know that I can trust you. I'm not just going to be compliant because you tell me I should.
Mm,
And I think that's a theme. So, I mean, I think the legal system has some really good strengths, and I think it is really important for people who don't have other ways of achieving some kind of justice. But
yeah.
it's so expensive and it's so limited in
Prolonged.
who can access it because of that, because of the time
Mm,
and the expense and the incredible stress.
yeah.
And, you know, obviously, I was doing a Masters of Law in 96 and 97, and that's when I did a subject alternative dispute resolution, and we could opt to do an extra weekend to get back. Then it was called a Certificate 3 in community mediation.
Hmm.
Um, and it was at that moment when I said, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be a lawyer
Fantastic.
anymore. And
Isn't
that's
that
when I
great?
left being a
Isn't
lawyer.
that great?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
finding the calling, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. That's how I felt when I discovered mediation. I really didn't know much about what mediation was and where to go and who to talk to start doing it. But then when I discovered it, I just thought that's exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life, or maybe shorter than that, but let's hope shorter than that, but still just enjoying it and doing my best in every aspect of it. And this podcast is part of it as well, because I love talking to my colleagues. It's just so special. Going back to the 24th of November, can you
Yes.
please tell us how is it going to be structured? Who is going to be there? And it's only in-person training, is it?
Yes, so I've only just this year started to do a little bit more in-person training, largely because my daughter's a bit more independent now, so I'm able to do a little bit more travel. And I'm actually in Brisbane anyway to do some work for another government organisation. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, I might just run, it's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., so it's 4 hours.
4 hours, yeah.
Um, a workshop on neurodiversity. And so I put it up and advertised it and just thought, oh, well, if we don't get enough people, we won't worry about running it. But I have a huge group from the Queensland Human Rights Commission coming along. I think they're sending 11 people, and then a few other people from very different backgrounds. And so what we'll do in it, we'll talk a bit about what is neurodiversity, because I think a lot of people have some misconceptions about what neurodivergence is. There's a lot of stereotypes out there that we see on social media, on television, like the Rain Man movie or Love on the Spectrum, or I can't remember the name of the show. Anyway, there's a few stereotypes out there which can give us the wrong idea about what's appropriate. So we'll do a bit of unpacking of what actually neurodiversity is. Then we'll spend a section of time looking at how some neurodivergent people experience conflict, because that is very different as well. So many people who are high masking, so people who try very hard to not look to be neurodivergent, who try to fit in with society, will accommodate way too much than they should be. So they will often not stand up for their needs because they don't want to create conflict, and they often have had trauma in their childhood, trying, not fitting in and trying to fit in. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We talk about things, there's a couple of aspects of neurodivergence, like rejection sensitivity, which means that people can what appears to be overreact to any kind of criticism, but that can be created from their life experiences so far of desperately trying to fit in and being criticized a lot for
That's
just
so
being themselves.
interesting. Some bells are
Yeah.
ringing here.
Yeah. And there's other things, like some people really like structure, some people really like less structure.
Yeah.
Some people need to separate receiving information, processing information, and responding to information. And in a mediation, we expect people to do that almost at the same time. And so there are some very simple things that we can do to help people to communicate in a way that's comfortable and effective for them. It does often take more time, but I think we always have that tension between efficiency and really doing a good job and supporting people. So we'll talk about that, and lots of strategies for fairly simple things that we can do to be more inclusive. And some of them are organizational level things, and some of them are more in the room, working with people one-on-one.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's going to be jam-packed 4 hours, I can see.
Oh yes, it will be skimming over the surface. I am currently working on some pre-recorded content that will be more available to people who can't take a day off work to come to a training like that. But it'll take a little while to put that together. But hopefully by the middle of next year, that should be available.
there is so much valuable work that people do and put either on their social media, like yourself, or there is heaps available through different training providers. And I feel that I am missing on so much, and that I'm just doing a fraction of what is offered and what could be, on my plate. But then I'm thinking I just have to prioritize, because apart from doing mediations themselves, there is all that admin work that I dread. Maybe that's part of that, my little brain working in a different way. And it's just, and then there is private life as well, of course, and
Yeah.
grandchildren, and making everyone happy, not
Yes.
necessarily.
I know I have that endless frustration that I don't have enough time to learn everything I want to learn and
Yes.
share everything I want to share. But I just keep thinking one step at a time, just keep contributing something small. And, you can't do everything. I have to remind myself that quite often.
Yeah, yeah. And there is that a little sort of, I don't know if it is a meme or something on social media that I've seen a couple of times over the past couple of weeks that just came up, was a student asking a teacher, why do I need to read all these books, because I keep forgetting them? And he said, don't you worry about it. I mean, there was a step where the teacher is asking the student to have a sieve and bring him some water, and the student was running, and then the water would, of course, seep through. And then at one stage the student, exhausted, said, oh, well, why am I doing this? I can't do anything with, I can't bring you any water. And the teacher said, look at the sieve. And it was nice and bright and clean, and it was dirty to start with. And then that's what he then said, you see, that happens to your soul and your brain and your thinking, and your how you see the world, because all those books go through, but they clean you and they give you a new light on, put new light on life. And I loved it. I just loved it.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
oh, it's so clever.
Yeah. It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Sam, anything else? I'm trying to keep the podcast to about half an hour, because I think
Yes.
people can manage that, but we could talk so much. Thank you for being my second video cast guest. I'll make sure that my platform actually works this time, and I will continue doing video casts. But tell us, is there anything else you would like to share with us?
Um, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think what with the Conflict Management Academy, we're doing a lot of pre-recorded content, largely because it's not viable for me to run around and train all the people that I'd like to connect with in person. But also it's very expensive and it's hard for people to take time out. So we've made a real commitment to doing some of that, but also a lot of pre-recorded content that people can then access, like your podcast, in there, whether it's morning, evening, night, on a weekend, in small 5-minute chunks or in one big section of time. We're trying to make it really flexible. And yeah, just inspiring people to think a bit differently about conflict, about their practice, and build community. So we've got so much content now. It's
Yes.
getting a little out of hand,
Yes.
but it's going to be there in a resource library, hopefully for the future generations.
Yes. Yes, I'm sure. And I'm sure that you have, you as much as you are aware of how much people follow you and all of that, I think that it's an iceberg, tip of the iceberg. And there are many people who are actually learning and loving what you're doing without you even knowing.
It is sometimes funny when people come up and talk to me at conferences and I have no idea who they are, but they
I
know a lot
know.
about me. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm a little celebrity in my own little bubble.
But that's good. It feels safe, I would say. Yes.
I do, yeah. I mean, I just love meeting people. I love people in this field because everybody in this field, I think, shares a real interest in people and in helping people, not in a paternalistic way of, coming in and fixing them, but really supporting people to develop the best in themselves. And that's something that I just think is so valuable. So everyone in this field inspires me because they share that real commitment to helping people be at their best in some of the worst times of their lives.
Sam, thank you again, and let's keep in touch.
Definitely. Thanks so much for inviting me, Vesna.
Dear listeners, and I think video podcast followers, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sure you have enjoyed this, and you can get in touch with me, but also you can get in touch with my guests on the lines that I will be putting in under this video. All the best. Bye.